Hello, and welcome to Sundays with Survivors, featuring the heroes of October 7th. Thank you, everyone, for being here, those who are joining us today, and those who are viewing this recording. I am so grateful to see so many new and familiar faces. As always, I got to give a loving shout out to my amazing, wonderful parents, and a very special thank you to all of the presenters and speakers, especially today's guests, Hadassah Ben Ari, Hannah Cohen, and Yehudit Singer-Freud, who I have the honor of introducing to you shortly. My name is Michael Mantell. I'm a psychotherapist and educator. In October 2020, with the help of Andrea Bolander, I launched the Sundays with Survivors program, the first of which featured Holocaust survivor Irving Roth of blessed memory. The program was, thank God, so well received that I added more Holocaust education programs, including Mondays Among the Nations, 2G Tuesdays, and 3G Thursdays, featuring non-Jewish allies and children and grandchildren of survivors, and added more programs that cultivate Jewish pride and allyship and combat Jew hatred. I am so grateful and proud to say that we are going over 4 years strong and counting. And now I have the honor of introducing our guests. Hadassah Ben Ari is an Israeli educator, motivational speaker, writer, and mother of 7. She is the creator of the Heroes of October 7th project, which has evolved from a viral social media campaign to a book in 3 languages, and now a movement. She gives presentations and workshops to teachers, parents, and communities about discovering the hero within us. Hannah Cohen is the widow of Oriel Cohen, a soldier in the Givati unit who fell in Gaza on December 19th, 2023, and the mother of 2 beautiful daughters. Hannah works in business development at Discount Bank and gives lectures around the country in Israel about Oriel and his legacy. Yehudit Singer-Freud is founder and CEO of Singer Publicity, a book and author publicity firm that works with a variety of Jewish authors around the world. Yehudit is originally from a small town on Long Island and moved to Israel at the age of 24, a few years after graduating college. She has been working in the publishing industry for over 15 years and has helped hundreds of Jewish authors get exposure for their books. In a few minutes, we will begin with introductory remarks from Yehudit. Throughout today's program, we invite you to write your questions and comments in the chat. And at the end, we will open up the program for Q&A. Now, no matter how incredible these programs are, and thank God they always are, your participation at the end of the program adds so much more meaning and value. At that time, please feel free to raise your virtual hand using the hand raise emoji so that I can see and call on you. Or unmute yourself to ask your questions directly, or I can share your questions and comments that you have written in the chat. And just a few announcements before we begin. We have a handful of wonderful programs this month in February that I hope you save the date and join us for. On Thursday, February 13th at 7 p.m. in person in New York City and via Zoom, we will be joined once again by the great centenarian Ted Komet, who will share his wife Shoshana Komet's Holocaust testimony through a visual tour of 5 larger-than-life tapestries created in the 1960s by Ted's wife Shoshana. Through the lens of these unique works of art and Shoshana's story, Ted explores the themes of Holocaust history, trauma, psychological repair, and an affirmation of life. And we will be in person with these tapestries in front of us. On Wednesday, February 19th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time via Zoom, please join us for a talk titled The Pact of Umar and the Arab Response to Zionism, featuring Professor David Brodsky of Brooklyn College, Dr. Amy K. Milligan from Old Dominion University, and Dr. A.J. Nolte of Regent University. The program will explore the history of Arab-Jewish relations and attempt to understand the ethos that gave birth to the modern Arab-Israeli conflict. And that program will be partnership with the Rededication Project and the CUNY Alliance for Inclusion, also known as CAFI. On Sunday, February 23rd at 11 a.m. Eastern Time via Zoom, please join us for our next Sundays with Survivors program featuring Holocaust survivor Alphonse Sperber, alongside his grandson and great-grandson, Ron, and Eli Caesar, who will be sharing Alphonse's testimony. Holocaust survivor Alphonse Sperber was only 11 years old when he began his narrow escape from the grips of the German Anschluss, or annexation, of Austria in 1938, eventually being hidden in Christian monasteries in France and crossing over the Alps into Switzerland before gaining passage to the United States in 1948. When his 11-year-old great-grandson, Eli, was assigned an immigration project for school, Alphonse reached into the deep recess of his mind and unearthed long-buried memories. Alphonse began sharing his personal story with his great-grandson, and his story and his interactions with his 11-year-old great-grandson became the subject of a poignant and moving novel, Live and Be Counted, written by Alphonse's grandson, Ron Caesar. This program is in partnership with the Rededication Project and 3GNY. And on Tuesday, February 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time in person in East Midtown Manhattan, and also available via Zoom, please join us for a talk titled Higher Education, the War Against the Jewish People and Democratic Principles, presented by Dr. Charles Asher Small, the founder and executive director of the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy, ISGAP. This presentation will assess the impact of soft power and the funding of American universities by the Qatari regime and the Muslim Brotherhood. The talk will be also examine the impact of intellectual anti-Semitism, contemporary discourse, and campus politics. That program is in partnership with the Rededication Project, CAFI, and ISGAP. As you can see, we have more meaningful programs ahead that I hope you can join us for. And with that, I'd like to once again thank you all for being here and your continued support of these programs. And again, thank and welcome Yehudit Singer-Freud, Hadassah Ben-Ari, and Hannah Cohen. Yehudit, if you can please start us off, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Michael, for helping to organize this event, and thank you to everyone for joining us. I just wanted to share a few thoughts because I've been working together with Hadassah and with Hannah on this project for a few months now, and it's really been an honor and a privilege to be able to contribute to this very meaningful project that they're involved with. So basically I'm sure I don't need to explain this, but ever since the events of October 7th, here in Israel and Jews around the world have been living in crisis and living with the trauma every single day. And I say this on a personal level, and also from what I see around me, is that the shock and the devastation left many of us paralyzed. You know, a lot of us became stuck and we didn't know what to do. And I look around and I see that other people were able to create something and act and do something constructive. And what has been so inspiring to me is seeing what Hadassah has managed to do with all of this, grief and these really tremendously difficult feelings. She is a mom of 7 children, and she basically shifted their focus from brutality and the terrible news that was coming out, and she shifted their focus to strength and inspiration and telling them stories of heroes, and she'll talk about that more. And so she started collecting these stories from other people, and what happens is that she kind of became a national celebrity here, not only for focusing on her own kids, but the stories started to gain a lot of popularity on social media. And she's been helping all of us put a vocabulary, give words to address the war to kids in an age-appropriate manner. And these are stories that are both civilians and also military. They're, people who stepped up in all different ways. And I could tell you that, I'm born and bred in New York, and growing up as a Jewish kid, I grew up on stories of, of heroes, Jewish heroes that lived a very long time ago, and the stories of the Maccabees and the stories in the Bible. And what I think is so powerful here is that you start reading the stories in her book, And you, first of all, you realize that these are not folklore. You know, these aren't stories from an ancient world of Queen Esther and Mordecai. You know, these are real life stories that happened in our time, from regular people. And not only that, but what I get from her book, The Heroes of October 7th, is that I think a lot of readers will read the stories and ask themselves, what would I do for my community if my community was in crisis? And so because she, you know, focuses on these stories of just regular, you know, regular ordinary people, it turns it into something more universal that we could all relate to. And it really shifts our mindset as Jewish parents who are talking to Jewish children. And she's going to talk more about that. I think it also, the stories help us kind of focus on the good in people, the inherent good in people, and that even amongst all this insane brutality that happens, there are good people who have been doing amazing things. So, and she's going to speak more about that today. And Hannah Cohen is here with us. She's one of the strongest people that I've ever met. Her husband sacrificed his life for the nation, and she is moving forward and using the community around her to gain support. So I hope that you all enjoy their presentation, and I hope I encourage all of you to get a copy of the book. It's available in bookstores, it's on Amazon, and do yourselves a favor and give it as a gift to all the Jewish children in your lives. So back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yehudit, for that beautiful introduction. I will start the program by asking Hadassah some questions. So thank you, everyone, for being here and putting some of your questions already in the chat and sharing them with me. I'm just going to show the book cover. It's a beautiful book cover. And start with some questions, Hadassah, for you. So, Yehudit,
just a minute, Michael. Can I
sure.
say something?
Please.
I'm really flattered, but I just want to say that I'm not here to talk about how amazing am I. I'm here to say how when the going gets rough, I just want to take care of myself, to think about myself, because I'm a mother of 7 children. And sometimes I just want to shut the door, go to sleep, maybe eat something in silence. And writing these stories was a way to remind me that there are people that walk among us that knew they had a lot to lose and still protected our country. And writing these stories was a way to remind myself that I want to be a good person, that I can be if I will take the inspiration from them. So you can start now.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And Yehudit shared a little bit about how it started. Can you give us a little bit more background on when exactly you started putting this project together and what that was like?
Yes, maybe I started when we were in Jerusalem during the holiday. So I woke up in the morning at 7, early in the morning, with a tiny baby of 2 months. And just as I went to the living room and blessed my children, Shabbat Shalom, happy holiday, we heard a siren. And I really tried to smile as my blood pressure rose. And I told them, okay, let's find a shelter. And you need to walk carefully and slowly, because an injury from running is more common than from a rocket. I don't know if they believed me, but we got in and out the state from countless time until 12 at noon, and we couldn't use our phones because we are religious. But some students came to the shelter, and they told us that there are 35 hostages and serious battles in the south of the country. So we try to talk really quietly, but children know they have their own ways to read our thoughts and to see the expressions on our faces and to feel our heart. So what did they know on October 7th in the morning? I didn't want to ask myself, but in the evening we came back to our home in Pardes Chana, a place far of noises of war and free of sirens. And I felt like my children was recovering and back to their routine. So the next morning, they didn't have schools because of the war. So they asked me, Mom, can we see a movie? Can we play on PlayStation? And I screamed at them, what are you talking about? There is a war going on. Our friends are still hiding in the safe rooms. Children your ages are still hiding in the safe rooms. But they couldn't understand, because you must understand that at the same time, experts on online and TV told us, the parents and teachers, don't expose your children to the harsh reality. Take their phones, shut down the television, don't let them go into TikTok and Instagram. So I asked myself, so what then? If I won't tell them something about what is going on out there, they will fill in the gaps themselves from their own imaginations or from incomplete bits of information, or the opposite, they will completely cut off from what is happening. And you know, when you live in Israel, the history is being written day by day. And I felt like our brothers and sisters are in the middle of this war, and we must do something. So my way of involving my children was writing letters and baking cakes for soldiers and civilians who has been evacuated from their homes. And I told them, so let's write or let's pray. And I didn't saw the spark in their eyes. They were just trying to please me. So one evening, a week after the war broke out, I asked them, do you want to hear a story from this war? And they told me, okay, my older children, 7 and over. And I started to tell them one story about Rachel Edry, Rachel and the cookies from Ofakim. And I felt like when I finished to tell them the story, I saw their eyes got bigger and bigger, and they smiled and they got emotional. And it's kind of embarrassing, but I will tell you that in our home, when you tell a good story, the children is acting like they are telling the story. Their whole expressions like, so when they did it, I knew that this was a damn good story. So I told them, okay, from now on, I will tell you one heroic story a day, and I will also write a book on the fly, because that's who am I. I like to think big, to do big. So that's how we started.
Beautiful. Now, that leads me to a few questions, but I'm not sure if everyone knows the story. Is it Rachel? Is that correct? Rachel's Cookies, it's listed in your book. Can you share a little bit about that story for those who don't know it? Because it's pretty remarkable.
Yes, of course. Rachel Edry is an absolutely normal, everyday woman from the periphery. She's not a soldier. She's definitely not young. And on October 7th, early in the morning, she went with her husband David out from their house into the shelter. During this time, 5 terrorists got into their home. And when they came back, the terrorists took them as hostages. So Rachel tried to earn time until the police officers will save her and her husband, and their son was one of the police officers. So Rachel, I felt like Rachel was connected with her inner special quality as being hostess, because that's what Rachel did. She was selling snacks to soldiers in the Tselim army base. So she tried to sing to the soldiers, and she tried to chat with them, and she told them, oh, maybe you will eat some cookies and you need to rest. Oh, you got injured, sweetie, please lay down. So she tried to earn time, and that's what helped her and her husband that's what helped the whole rescue mission. This is an amazing story.
It is an amazing story. I know a lot of the news picked up on it, and it came around in social media, and you tell it beautifully in the book as well. So this goes to the question you shared, that there was a certain way to approach these stories and the reality with your children. How do you, or did you in this book and in general, how do you balance the need for being age appropriate with the material, as well as telling the stories about what really happened on October 7th?
That's a good question, because my inner conflict as a writer was You know that every good story have a beginning, middle, and end with a plot. And I felt that the Israeli mother in me can't build the attention to the climax because I wanted to protect my children and all the children in the state of Israel. But I asked myself, they know what Paro did to the Jewish babies in Egypt, and they know what Haman wanted to do in the Megillat Esther. And some of them already know stories from the Holocaust. My children know that my grandmother jumped from the train through Treblinka. Okay, like we're telling these stories all the time. On the other hand, all of this happened in distant history and it doesn't threaten us today. So I knew everything needs to be really, really sensitive. So before I wrote the first story, I called a senior child psychologist that specialized in child trauma from one of the best hospitals in Israel. And I've asked her to give me red lines. What can I say and what I can't? At the beginning, she told me, please don't tell anything. This is the second week into the war, and our clinics are full with patients. You know, if you will tell these stories, they can be very traumatic. Then the children can be very frightened. But I told her, you know, they already know, they can hear, they see their fathers going into the army, and they know what happened to their neighbors. And, you know, maybe I will write these stories, and parents that want to tell these stories will do that now. And maybe others can tell it in, I don't know, half a year ahead when the war will stop. That's what I thought. So she told me, okay, I will tell you. This is so important, first of all, to pick the story to your child through his development. In Israel, the stories are suitable for 9 to 12 years old. And I think that abroad, it's something like 11 and over because they're less exposed to the harsh reality. And this was in the beginning. I think that now 7 and over, it's okay. And she told me not only, you know, picking the story is important, but the discussion that you can have after you're reading the story. Okay, ask them what they feel about the events and the heroes described. Also, she said, validate their feeling. Tell them that it's okay to feel sad, and this is absolutely normal. When I'm reading them stories from the book, I'm telling them, I'm so sad. I really wanted this soldier to stay alive, so they can feel this is okay. Also, she told me, tell them, highlight how lives in Israel are carried on. Like the coffee shops are full, there is no parking in the mall, we keep dancing in weddings. Okay, we have also good things in here. Not the whole country is not like battlefield. And I think that the most important thing is to remain in contact while telling them about traumatic situations. Give them a hug, look in their eyes, give them a hug.
As a child and family psychotherapist, these tips resonate with me. And I think it's so important for people to understand that, because we talk about social stories in my line of work, and essentially what it is, it's to build a story in order for you to have this conversation. And that's the starting point of what comes next. And I feel like just reading these stories really helps cultivate that conversation, which is wonderful. And the conversation is not just a one-time conversation, like you're saying, it's just building upon this for future conversations, but also to build that resilience. And you talked about making heroes, right? So it sounds like just these stories. And unfortunately, as much as we talk about Jewish past, whether we're talking about ancient history or just modern Jewish history, these very much resonate with the story of the Jewish people throughout our history, for better and worse. So I think it also has that connection to the stories that we do tell our children, like you said.
I think that what makes me feel the passion to write these stories, although this is so complicated, is that I want my children to have cultural heroes beyond Spider-Man and Captain America And I mean real people that we can connect and learn from. And this is our heroes. One evening, I went with my children to, I don't know, it was a Hanukkah party. And then one of my children said, "Oh, look, Asaf Hamami." And I said, "Where?" He's one of our great commanders that died on October 7th. And I told him, "Where?" And then I saw a sticker with one of the sentences about Asaf Hamami. I think it was, "Be good, be Asaf." And I felt my heart was full with, I felt like this is exactly the thing that I wanted them to learn, to have cultural heroes. Be good, be Asaf.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. And I'm assuming your intended audience to begin with was Israeli children, and then
Yes.
broadening to Jews in the diaspora and maybe just the general population. So how is the storytelling, like you said, it might be for a younger audience in Israel and maybe 11 and older in the States or elsewhere. So how is the storytelling different for example, having this book translated? What was that like for an audience outside of Israel? Because it resonates differently with Jews outside of Israel. I speak from experience, than it does, I assume, for Israelis who are still experiencing this every single day. Obviously, we are as well, but in a different way.
First of all, we started to translate these stories. I think it was in Hanukkah last year, and people overseas told me, we can't light our candles this Hanukkah out of our houses, and we need to take down our mezuzah from the doors. And I felt like I want children all over the world, Jewish children, we know that there is a little country where you can be full with pride, like with proud. We have soldiers, we have a country, we know what we're doing, and you have a place, you have a home, like our heart are connected, and there is a strong rope that connects us. So our English team, and I saw here Alison Kopiatsky from our English team, they started to translate these stories. And before we published this book overseas in the English version, I've told the publisher, listen, I know that I worked with a psychologist here in Israel about this book, but I want you to take a special psychologist from New Jersey because I want her to do the cultural match. I want it I know that everything needs to be really sensitive. So they did a great job, I think.
And how does it how does it differ from the translation in Hebrew or in Israel? Is there a difference that we would
Yes,
see?
they did a gentle job to try to, not to bring all the passion from the battlefield, but also here in Israel, we did it really softly, like soft heroism. We have stories about hard heroism, like stories from the battlefield, and soft heroism, like one of the women that opened her B&Bs and hosted soldiers, and they could to take a shower at her house and to eat and rest and everything. I think they did a really gentle job. Most of the stories are more like here in Israel, and they had a really tough job by translating the army phrases. Like here in Israel, we all know about the commanders and teams and squads, and overseas, like they need to explain it.
And you started this, I guess it started like a small project and just became viral and expanded, which is beautiful. Yehudit started by sharing a little bit how you started the program and project and you began, but how else did more people become involved? How you got all of these stories of these heroes? How did that come about? And specifically, how did you and Hannah connect?
Oh, Okay.
calls me.
It happened from day one. At Hannah, I met her afterwards. But since a day after I had this idea to write these stories, my mind was exploding, and I knew I have to write it down. And at that time in Israel, everybody wanted to help, to do something in this war. So I must tell you this story because I hosted a Qigong therapeutic breathing workshop to women whose husband has been drafted into the reserves. So I saw a sea of women coming into my living room, 30 women, and my friend came to visit me because I was after birth. And I've told her, Shira, I honestly don't have any patience for it, but I think I need to write stories from this war for children. And then she told me, oh my God, I have my best friend is a graphic designer, and I know someone who can do you the social work on the media and Facebook and Instagram. And I didn't have Facebook and Instagram. And I told her, Shira, I expected you to be a good friend and tell me, please go to sleep. You have 7 children, you need to rest, you after birth. But she told me, no, we will do this together. So we started as a team of 4 women whose husband has been drafted into the reserves. And then I started to call everybody I know who knows how to write well. So I had writers and editors and translators and a psychologist, and we all worked together, and I did the edition work. And then I met Hannah because in the beginning, we started to pick the stories from the media, and at the same time, everybody were in shock, and they went to the funerals and to the hospitals. So what we left is to find the stories in the media and write it down. But then people started to find us, widows and families. They asked, please find the Dasa Ben-Ari and tell her and her team to write our story, my husband's story, my son's story. And then we met Hannah, and she asked us to write Uriel's story, her amazing Uriel. And we did an interview, and we wrote the story, and we published it. And this story is not in the first book, but I really hope that we have the second volume and the third and the fourth, because we wrote 200 stories.
So you answered one of my questions,
I
which was
know.
how many stories did you collect, and what was the selection process like for what stayed in the book, what didn't, and will there be another volume? So 200
Right.
stories so far, potentially another volume or 2, God willing. Amazing. And what was the experience like getting this book published?
How it was for me?
Yeah.
Wow, it was amazing. I was in shock. I felt like this is a good net project, but one day the publisher in Israel, Yediot Achronot, called me and they told me, we want to publish your stories. And I told them, okay, wait, because we have been through 3 or 4 months into this war. So let's wait. I could write these stories more emotional, in a more emotional way and in a good way, you know, like a good story with a beginning, middle, and end, with a plot, with the tension to the climax. And they told me, no, we want to publish it now, in April, March. So I told them, okay, let's jump together into the swimming pool. Let's do that together. And I felt like I need to put myself in the side because we have a bigger story over here. And telling these stories is a way to process the trauma. And this is a good way. Tomorrow, I'm going to do a lecture in 2 high schools in Sderot, near the Gaza envelope. And I've told the teacher over there that invited me, what can I say? I mean, there, I will talk with the heroes. There are the heroes. I want to listen to their story. I don't want to talk about how I wrote stories about heroes. They are the heroes. They saw their neighbors getting shot, and this is so hard. And she told me, I must say that everybody here bought this book and they're reading this book. Reading these stories is a way to process the trauma and to organize the whole information. I think that when they're reading these stories, they can say, okay, we are also heroes.
I think that's 100% true. It helps us, like you says, it organizes it for us. It helps us recognize what it means to be a hero. As you said, we have the Spider-Mans and the Supermans, but we have our own heroes here. And for example, how you mentioned the heroes of October 7th, it reminds me of the resistance during the Holocaust. When we talk about resistance, a lot of people think about the partisans and the fighters. However, there were people who sabotaged the factories, who were forced laborers, or people who continued their Judaic practices. So I think what it means to be a hero looks many different ways. And again, just having this conversation and using this book as a starting point allows people to recognize themselves and what they're doing and how they are heroes as well. So it's quite beautiful. The book is beautifully illustrated, and each story is about one page, right? Can you talk about the illustration? Yeah,
less than 300 words.
Less than 300 words. So can you talk about paring the stories down to about 300 words and the beautiful illustrations that go along with the book?
Sorry, what's the question?
You could talk a little bit about the process of paring it down to 300 words, because there's a lot more to everyone's story, and also the beautiful illustrations that go along with them.
Yes. So Teila, our great graphic designer, did the whole graphics during her job and when her husband is in the army. And we wanted to do the stories really short so the children could listen, because in these days no one can read or listen. So we wanted to do that real shortly. And I told my writers, please don't tell me stories only from the battlefield. I want to hear about how they were heroes when they were young, when they were children or teenagers. So I told them, take one special quality. I want a child to hear the story, and then he will be able to find a way to be connected with his inner hero. And I feel that all of the heroes in these stories, they have the special way to listen to their inner voice. And when you are listening to your inner voice, you just know what you need to do. If you need to run away, this is also heroism, when you know when you need to run away, or when you need to save one person or 100 persons of people, or 7,000 like Rami Davidian did. So I told them, let's pick one story. Some of them wanted to write stories about miracles. And I told them, please leave it to someone else, to another book about stories about miracles. Because when our children are hearing a story about a miracle, they don't have the ability to learn something about it, about themselves. But when we are telling one story about an action, something that the hero did, they can ask themselves, how would I reacted if I were there in the battlefield or in my home or in my safe room?
In the book, the first few pages, you have some guidelines on how parents or grown-ups can read these stories with children. And you're talking about bringing into the classroom. I know with Holocaust education and even my experience in a Hebrew school teaching modern Jewish history and talking about October 7th to 5th and 6th graders and 7th graders, not a lot of teachers have guidance on how to approach the topics, especially October 7th. Like you said, it's current. Do you also have a curriculum guide or something available for teachers or schools to utilize in order to be able to help them tell these stories through this book?
Actually, we did a cooperation with schools overseas, and we put it on our website. Our team of volunteers put the stories in English, French, and Hebrew in our website. That's giborimkids.com. So you can find over there all of the stories, not the only ones that's in the book. And yes, thank you, Judy. This is our website. And yes, there is a guidance for teachers over there.
Amazing. I'll also share that in our follow-up email.
Thank you.
Great resources. So you're working with the organization Brothers for Life, Achim
Yes.
L'Chaim. A portion of the proceeds of the purchase of the book will be donated to this organization. Can you tell us how you got connected with them and a little bit more about the organization?
Yes, actually, they didn't know that I'm going to to give my profits to them. Because when I talked with the publisher about our agreement and the fee and everything, I told them I don't want to earn money about our heroes. Like I drafted into the reserve like everybody else. This is my way to be part of this war. And I want to bring the money to soldiers who fought for us. And Brothers for Life are helping these soldiers. They have great center near the airport in Israel, and soldiers are coming over there, soldiers that got wounded and soldiers that are post-traumatic, and they have a gym and a pool and psychotherapists that helping them every day. They're doing an amazing job, really. So my profits going to the soldiers. And I've told them about it, and they were really happy. And actually, a day after we did the book launch in Israel, Brothers for Life told me, listen, we need to publish this book in English. So the day after, I called the publisher and I told them, please let me publish this book in the English version. And I've started to learn English because I didn't speak English by the last 15 years. I was raising my children, each baby until he was 2, and then came the other one. So I started to learn English, and we translated the stories and we publish it overseas. And Hannah and I are coming to the US in the end of the month. And Judith did the whole tour for us, so we can speak with the youth and communities overseas.
Amazing. That's probably going to be a very meaningful tour for everyone who's involved in that. So thank you for doing that, both of you. What were some of the challenges of this project, and specifically getting the book out there? So what were the challenges that you came across?
From where to start? First of all, writing the stories, and we talked about it, how you can write about traumatic situation. The second thing was to translate the stories in a way. We had a great fear that parents won't buy this book and don't want to, so they won't want to tell their children these stories. But Judy told me that she spoke with schools and everybody knows this book and they're waiting for us, and it's so excited for us, really. And I think that our main problem is how to get familiar with this book overseas, because the publisher in Israel he don't know how to work overseas, I must say. And we want everybody to know about this book. Like, they're doing a lot of books. So that's the reason that we're coming to the US to explain, to expose the population to our book.
Beautiful. I look forward to it being in everyone's hands in the States. I'll do my part to make sure that happens as well. And I think the beauty of this is not only do we have a book that celebrates the life and honors the memory of these heroes, but also it gives us a way to speak about these stories with children, transmit the stories to the next generation, but also supports an amazing organization as well. So thank you for allowing that to happen. Hannah, I'd love to bring you into the conversation. I would love to ask you, how do you want us to remember Uriel?
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Hannah Cohen, 32 years old, and the wife of the incredible Uriel Cohen, who was killed in Gaza 2 months after the war started. I'm a mom to 2 sweet girls, 3 years old Shir and 1.5 years old Leah, and we live next to Jerusalem at Tzur Hadassah. So Uriel and I were in opposite places. I did everything I could to stop him from going and he did everything he could to stay in Gaza and keep fighting. That's what makes me angry, but it also very consoles me. I know that in the second before he died, he was exactly where he wanted to be, leading, commanding, incredibly proud that he was fulfilling his destiny, defending the Jewish nation and the Jewish homeland. So my role right now is to be a person who is lacking someone in this world, and you have an opportunity to be filled for my lack. Uriel was a very amazing person, and I hope that we can all learn from his best midot. He was dedicated to the country, to his people. And our future will be better because of each one of you who tries to live a great, dedicated life.
Thank you. Chana, I also want to ask you one more question about the support you get from your community and other young widows in Israel. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so currently there are about 400 widows from the recent war. I have a group of amazing friends who share this situation with me. We have WhatsApp groups and tell bad jokes with dark humor. It what keeps us going. I invented the expression bereavement and booze because a little wine always helps. And sometimes we sit together and drink a bit to make things easier. I realize now that it is so important to have family and friends. It's so important to have a support system of people who understand you, what you're going through.
Beautiful. And I do want to share, somebody who did not know I was hosting this program shared a video, and it happened to have you, Chana, in it. And it was an inspirational video, so I think it's beautiful. So I just wanted to share that. Yeah. Now I want to take this time to open up the program for Q&A from everyone who's with us today. I have a few people who already shared questions with me. I'll start with those, but if anybody else has any questions or comments that they want to share, again, the program is always so meaningful, but with you sharing as well, it makes this even more meaningful. We have Sam in New York asks, how can we support and help this movement to focus on the heroes within us end of October 7th in the United States? So what can we do here in the United States to help this movement and to help our heroes?
Thank you for this question. I think that's exactly the last sentence that we should leave this Zoom with, because that's the real question. Because I said it in the beginning that I feel that there is a strong rope that connects us. I think that there is a strong rope that connects the Jews in Israel to the Jews abroad, because together we are planting the seeds and raising the next generation. So our hope to a better world is in this story, in the Israeli conflict, and the end of this conflict, the next chapter, maybe I should say, the next chapter, we can raise together. And the way is to learn something, to learn our lessons from these heroes. Now, I know that people overseas don't want to expose their children to the harsh stories, but if we will open our hearts and tell stories about our heroes, first of all, people here in Israel, the widows and the families will feel that Jews all around the world are hugging them and standing for them. And the second, we can learn our lessons. I want to share that I feel that when my children read in this book, they're getting 3 key messages, and that this is exactly what I wanted them to feel while they are reading this book. The first one is where there are no people, be the person. Like, this is from Masechet Avot, the book of Jewish ethics. If no one takes responsibility, so please take one. And the second message is that we're brothers in arms. In the battlefield, there is no room for opinions. Men, women, Jews, Bedouin, secular and religious, we're all one. And the third point is a development of the second one, that if we can fight side by side, we can also live side by side. And I think we are building a stronger society here in Israel. And I feel like I want everybody around the world will know that, and this is the story, not what, I don't know, the media is telling you about politics and the fights here in Israel. If we want to build something together, we need to tell these stories. So please tell about this book to all of your friends.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that through my conversations with Hadassah and with various schools that I've been in touch with, Hebrew schools, Jewish day schools in the States. So a few of them have mentioned to me that they actually have looked in the book and they've used the website and they are sharing the stories, you know, let's say once a week, if there's a Shabbat program, they're, you know, reading the stories and sharing them with the kids. And, you know, they're asking follow-up questions with the kids because that gets them to, you know, internalize the message and, you know, also think for themselves, like, how can I be a hero, you know? Also, Hadassah has spoken about some of the, you know, wider picture educational potential of the book, different projects that she thought about in terms of, you know, writing letters to some of the families of the fallen soldiers or some of these heroes and showing them that there are people in America who are supporting them and who are thinking of them. So, you know, there's a lot of different ways that you can incorporate the stories into, you know, into any family or into any holiday setting or, you know, in a synagogue, like if there's a youth group or something. So those are also just some practical ideas that people might want to utilize.
That's so beautiful and so helpful. I think sometimes we need help figuring out how to turn our emotions or these ideas into action. So using this book again as a pivot point for us to do something, I think that's excellent. And these are small steps or small tasks. It's not insurmountable. Just sharing these stories is enough, right? To propel people into action or just to have conversation and bring awareness to these lives and these people. There's another question. So thanks, Janie.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for giving me the floor. So I work for the Camera Education Institute, where we try to regress the issues of false information about Israel and inaccurate representation of Jews and Israelis in mainstream American classrooms, and really to assist parents and educators in facing this bias, particularly the contemporary anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism that we're finding, that I'm sure many of you have read about, not only on college campuses, but it really begins in K-12. And recently we had the opportunity to present and also have a booth about all the collection of books, which of course, Hadassah, your book is front and center. And we actually in the booth, we had like your book front and center for all American educators and librarians to see. It was at a conference in November in Boston. There were close to 8,000 educators and librarians from all over the United States, also professors that train teachers for regular classrooms, whether it's independent secular schools or public schools. And really the goal is really to utilize the book and do presentations for teachers where we bring that idea of heroes exactly as you're beautifully saying it. And it just brings much more inspiration to hear you talk about the project when we're actually presenting it to, you know, of course, Jewish day schools and all those places are so important, but we need to also make this part of mainstream America, to have American children and American teachers become familiar with that. And so we're working on that. So
Thank you. Thank you very much. So exciting. Really, this was our biggest dream.
thank you.
Thank you, Janie, for sharing that. It is so beautiful to see that connection and to know that this is being used in real time. So there's another question. Let me grab that. So somebody, I think it's Luis in the UK, is asking, would like to know and understand, this is going to be a tough one. So Luis in the UK says that I am seeking to know and understand all of the implications of the October 7th attack. So it sounds like this person wants to know if we have any information on how this is impacting people in Israel. I think that's a pretty challenging question, but from your perspective, Do you have anything to share with that, Hadassah?
I want to share stories about my friends, childhood friends that came back from the battlefield in Gaza. And they told me, you know, we can't tell our children what we have been through over there. But when we are reading your stories, we can say something. And also, we can feel that we are also kind of heroes. We weren't at our homes for a year and a half, almost a year and a half. And I felt like these are soft stories. And when we're telling these stories, we can feel like to put together the big story. We can hold the big story in that way. So that's what I think.
And another question. This one is coming from Karen, Massachusetts. Are there any initiatives that you know in the works to get more books like The Heroes of October 7th into the hands of English-speaking students in order to educate them about the accurate Israeli history? So it sounds like this is going beyond October 7th, but more about books just like yours, the way they're intended for a younger audience, speaks to a younger audience today. Is there anything like that about the history of Israel and the Jewish people?
That's a good question, because when I started this project, I've noticed that my father served in the Air Force for 30 years, and my brothers lived in army bases, Palmachim and Tel Nof, and I born in Yavne, in a small neighborhood populated by soldiers who served in the Air Force. And my father would bring us books about soldiers who had been awarded for bravery, brave actions on behalf of the nation. So I felt like I was sitting with them on the sofa, Yoni Netanyahu, Nir Poraz, Nachshon Wachsman. And while I was writing these stories, I thought, oh my God, that's exactly the thing that, you know, I wanted to feel safe. I wanted to feel proud. I wanted to feel like my father told me, gave me this book so I can read it to myself. This is the first children's book that published in Israel and overseas about this war. There are two other books, comics books, I think. And I think that there is stories and books not about this war, about Zionism, and I don't know something particularly, but I think you can find stories about Jewish history for children on the website. I'm sure there is something.
Thank you. I also want to just say thank you again to Hadassah Ben-Ari, Yehudit Singer-Freud, and Hannah Cohen for your bravery, for sharing today, and for everything that you're doing, for keeping these people's memories alive, for keeping the heroes alive, for keeping the stories alive, and giving inspiration to the Jewish people in Israel, in the diaspora, and for all people around the world, because we need that right now. I think that's the biggest way to combat anti-Semitism, Jew hatred, anti-Israel, anti-Zionism, everything that tries to bring us down, by cultivating the heroes within us, especially in younger Jews and younger people. So I'd like to ask if there's anything that the three of you would like to give us, any last statements before we close out the program.
I would say that sometimes people ask me from where do I have the strength to deal with all of this death and pain, and I'm also working on my next project. I'm interviewing widows from all of the wars in Israel. Will be my next book, Be'ezrat Hashem. And I'm telling them that I'm getting my strength from the Jewish philosophy, that death is not the end, but rather a continuation where souls still shine and the stories live on with us. Death is deepening of life. And when we are learning their stories, we are becoming better people. So I hope we can build together a better world, a better place. And thank you for showing up. Thank you very
Beautiful.
much.
Thank you.
Judith, please tell them where will we be visiting. I saw the question.
Yes, sure. So Hadassah and Hannah are actually coming to the United States for their first speaking tour. They are coming at the end of the month, and they're going to be mainly in, they're going to be in the tri-state area and then down in Tampa. I really hope that this is the first of their trips and that there will be more trips. So if any of you here on the call would like to, help organize an event in your community, maybe in the summer or the fall, then I'll write my email address here and I would be more than happy to be in touch with you.
Yeah, tell it to my 200 children.
Amazing, thank you. And Hannah, if you would like to share any last words for us today.
Tell us from where do you have the strength, Hannah, please.
No, I only say that I'm very proud to speak about my husband, and he really was a huge hero for me, and the little thing in the life, not only in the war. I think that a hero is beginning when you starting the life and all over the life, and I have many stories about him to tell how he was a really hero, and I'm really proud of him.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much, Hadassah, Hannah, and Yehudit, for being here and sharing with us, and especially introducing so many people to this incredible project and book. And I hope it gets into the hands of so many people. I wish you so much success on your tour in the United States. You always have a place in New York, so please, when you're here. And everyone, thank you so much for being here and listening and being a part of this. We will follow up with an email, which will give you more information on how to purchase the book. And again, proceeds go to this incredible organization, Brothers for Life. So thank you all for being here and have a beautiful day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.